Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. For today's video, it's going to take us into the first 10 days of February. We'll also have a look at the Beijing Climate Center for the next 40 days. Haven't had a look at that recently, so I'll bring you up to date with what that is showing. I'm going to start off, of course, talking about the situation with the risk of snow in the next few hours, and the very latest radar is looking like that, so I'll talk you through what's going on there. But it hasn't really been much change since we did snow watch last night. If anything, this band of snow has possibly been trending just a little bit further southwards again, but overall not much change on snow watch last night, so I don't think we'll need to do another snow watch really today. It looks like it's all pretty much on course as we expected. So I'll talk you through everything that's going on very shortly. Just say I have still got to share some more of your weather pics that you sent to me this week on social media and various other places, but I haven't got time for this video, but I will bring you an update with those in a future video. So I'm going to start off with a radar picture from the Weather Outlook. And we've got this area of precipitation across the Republic of Ireland, struggling to get into the north of Ireland, you'll notice, but it's across the Republic, over the Irish Sea, down into the southwest of Wales, and also into southwestern parts of England. Some bright colours in there as well. Otherwise, we've got snow showers across the north of Scotland, and then elsewhere it's generally dry. The dew point looks like this, so most places are below freezing with their dew points today. It is a very cold day. It's a very cold night last night. Temperatures in some places went down underneath -10. Quite widely, -6, -7, -8, making for the coldest night of the winter, most definitely. So that's how the dew points are looking right now, and so as this precipitation comes up against this cold air, we're going to find it turning increasingly to snow through Wales and southern parts of England as well. Again, a little bit of uncertainty about the northern extent of this system. This is how the arpège model is looking. So this is for 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We compare that to where the precipitation actually is. I think that's a pretty good forecast from arpège. It's about got it about right, I think, for this point in the afternoon. I'm doing a video at 2:30, so I think that's about right really for where we are with this system. Let's run through and see what arpège was forecasting. So snow gets up in towards Wales and some southwestern parts of the country around 8, 9 o'clock tonight. Then it expands across Wales into central southern England up towards midnight. Some quite heavy snow could be going on then. Struggling to get much further north than the southwest Midlands though, you'll notice. So much of the eastern Midlands, much of East Anglia, not really getting much in the way of snow. And then that system generally sticking just a little bit north of the M4, so probably getting up towards the Chilterns in the early hours of the morning before starting to die away. Really is struggling though to get north, this system. One point this band of snow was forecast to get up in towards northern parts of England, but it's going to get nowhere near northern England by the look of it. Through the course of tomorrow, we bring some snow showers into the northeastern part of the country, off the North Sea. So just keep an eye on them. We have got snow showers feeding in off the North Sea through the course of tomorrow, as that band of snow, which will be quite patchy in the morning down in the south, dies away. This is how the icon model is forecasting things for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, I think a pretty good position for where that band of rain is. If we compare it to the radar, compared to the forecast, I think that's about right for sort of 2, 3 in the afternoon. This is where things are sitting at 6 o'clock in the evening. So heavy snow covering many southern and central parts of Wales, down into southwestern England, starting to push in towards the Bristol area, getting in towards Wiltshire, Hampshire, those sort of areas potentially being impacted by snow. And then up to 9 o'clock and then midnight, that snow is through Wales. It does get a little bit further northwards than arpège is showing. This is something that Icon has been quite keen on getting that snow a little bit further north. So that is getting further into the Midlands. It's getting towards Birmingham, excuse me, for example, possibly getting over towards where I am in Northants. And going further southeast, we see some quite heavy snow also to the southeastern part of the country as well. So it is around 50 miles or so, that little bit further north with Icon compared to arpège. So still a bit of uncertainty about how far north this is going to get. It's certainly not going to get any further north than the Midlands. It looks like the Midlands really will be its northern limit. And as it pushes north, it'll probably be weakening as well. So the snow depths are going to range wide with this. In the southwestern part of the country there, we've got those pink colours turning up at 9 o'clock tonight across parts of South Wales, some southern parts of England. We could see anything up to 10 centimetres over high ground. That's 4 inches. But other areas may only get a dusting or a centimetre or two. So it probably will be quite a lot of fairly widespread local variation. Through the course of tomorrow, that band of snow dies away. Have got snow showers around those eastern coasts, making feeding land, particularly across the northeastern parts of England. So those of you across northeast England waiting for some snow, you may get a little bit from snow showers tomorrow. Sunday, we bring another weather system in from off the Atlantic, quite weak, but it might bring some rain or snow in from the west. And then by the time you get through to Monday, the Atlantic is properly breaking through, turning things pretty wet and windy. So, yes, there will be snow around, maybe quite disruptive snow in some places today, but by no means everywhere is going to get snow. And just keep looking at the radar, just keep monitoring how things are progressing through the course of this afternoon, and we're seeing in terms of how far north and east that band of snow is getting. Right, this is the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart, just updated from NOAA and CPC and NCEP as well. So the black line tells where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. Red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. It's just an index that's reflective of the state of the atmosphere. It's not driving anything, it just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. So the Arctic Oscillation at the moment is negative. It's going to go even more negative as we go through to the start of February. That's indicated by the red lines. I mean, it's staying negative overall through the first week of February, although starting to stage a recovery. As we go into the second week of February, quite a lot of scatter, but I think the overall trend might be now starting to move the Arctic Oscillation into more positive territory. Now, when the AO is negative, you're going to have high pressure up over the pole. You're going to have blocking in the northern latitudes, high latitude blocking in the northern latitudes. And typically the mid-latitudes will be cold. Now we know for parts of America it is extraordinarily cold at the moment. Polar vortex has collapsed out of the North Pole and is sitting across the Midwest of the United States as we speak. It's also cold on our side of the Atlantic, of course, but nowhere near as severe. So the cold is there, and it's what you'd expect to see when you get a negative AO. But it does look as though as it goes through to the second week of February, although there is a lot of scatter within the GFS ensembles, I think generally the trend might be to move the Arctic Oscillation into more positive territory. And this goes against really what we've been expecting for February. All the way along we've been thinking February will probably be the most blocked month of the winter, have the coldest potential. But well, that's what the Arctic Oscillation is showing this morning. Now, it's in the extended range of the GFS ensemble, so it's unreliable, but it might be an indication, actually, that as we go further into February, we may be starting to see signs of low pressure start to come back to the North Pole. Now, in terms of the North Atlantic Oscillation, again, the black line tells us where we've been with the NAO. The red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. Excuse me, all the way along through this winter, as the Arctic Oscillation has been generally trending negative, more and more negative, the North Atlantic Oscillation has been sticking in positive territory generally. We did go a little bit negative with the NAO at the start of January, but other than that, it's generally been neutral to positive with the NAO since the beginning of December. This is where we are with the NAO right now. We're close to neutral, but on the positive side. GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to become more positive in the week ahead, and then possibly hinting at a very positive NAO starting to appear as we go into the second week of February. So this is taking us up towards the middle part of February, of course. And to be honest, it looks like both of the indexes today, anyway, they might change, but both of the indexes today look as though they're heading into more positive territory as we go further into February. This goes against what we've been expecting for February. We've been expecting February to be potentially the coldest month of the winter, to potentially have the greatest northern blocking signals. But there's not a lot of sign of that, I have to say, within the Arctic Oscillation and North Atlantic Oscillation forecast today. Although, let's not go too over top with the AO, because again, there is a lot of scatter there. And we can't rule out these ensemble members down here, but are keeping the AO in negative territory. It's just that the trend, I think, within the GFS ensembles is not only to move the AO back towards neutral in the next week, possibly then the trend is to move it into positive territory in week 2, at the same time as the NAO is becoming more positive. The positive NAO is actually strengthening through the second week of February, which is again against what we've been anticipating for this winter. So a lot of winter forecasts are in trouble there, if that is right, including the Gauss Lodowitz winter forecast. But again, it's only today's update of the AO and NAO, so let's not go too over top about it. Let's just wait and see how things progress. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Penn State University. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a good look at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80 miles feet is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. Now, look at the ECMWF, what it was doing this morning. This is based on the midnight run of the ECM, and it has a Scandinavian high, with high pressure sitting to the north and to the northeast of the country, and it's pulling in cold easterly winds with the ECM. So I'll show you the charts from the ECMWF in a moment. They are quite interesting as we get through to sort of days 7, 8, 9, 10. So you build up that high pressure over Scandinavia. I can tell you already that the ECM this morning was a cold outlier. So when you see those charts, just keep it at the back of your mind that it wasn't particularly well supported from its ensembles. But that's what the ECM was doing this morning, whereas the GFS was looking like this. So the GFS does have that ridge of above average heights to our northeast, but it is much further northeast. It's kind of like across western parts of Russia, and then it's standing up into the Arctic with this area below average heights out to the northwest of the British Isles. And just bring in a westerly flow from off the Atlantic. So the GFS, the much milder of the two models this morning, with generally more of an Atlantic-driven flow compared to the ECM, which did build up that Scandinavian high. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. So we're looking at Accrington today, home of the famous Accrington Stanley, of course. So we've got the red line, and someone's asked me to look at Accrington. By the way, it's another place on our list of suggested locations for this section of the video. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Accrington, and we're starting off pretty cold actually at the moment. Temperatures around or underneath -5 at 850 HPA. It's going to stay cold through to the weekend. But early next week, we see the temperature starting to lift up, actually becoming quite mild for a time through the early part of next week before temperatures then drop back to the 30-year temperature average. Overall, not much sign of it going particularly cold once the weekend is out of the way. So we go into the early part of February looking close to average with the ensembles, but that would actually in reality be relatively mild, because this is an unsettled spell of weather that's coming up, as we can see by the precipitation spikes. So a lot of dry weather for Accrington through to the weekend, but then by the time you get through to the early part of next week, it's going much more unsettled with quite a lot of rainfall spikes. So going to be unsettled, going to be driving low pressure in from off the Atlantic by the look of it. So although the upper air temperatures are around average, that will actually be quite mild in reality, because we're not going to get much in the way of frost by night, and daytime temperatures will probably be a bit above average too. There are a few cold outliers still up here. We've got this run just here, and that one just there. They're going into sort of freezer territory, but they are real outliers. They're not at all supported by the GFS ensembles today. So the trend certainly through the second half of the first week of February, and probably going into the second week of February, looks increasingly unsettled and rather mild with the GFS ensembles, which would of course tie in with what we were just seeing, the signals with the AO and NAO. Temperature anomalies from the 31st of January to the 8th of February are forecast to be rather colder than average. So we've still got a few more cold days to go before it starts to get milder early next week. So overall, from the 31st of January to the 8th of February, we're looking cold on average for the UK and Ireland. Most parts of Western Europe are looking quite cold too. Precipitation anomalies from the 31st of January to the 8th of February, close to or a little bit above average, so rather cold and unsettled. But of course, we have got that milder trend as we go through into next week. So this is how the latest GFS operational run was looking for Sunday. Still cold on Sunday. We're underneath this ridge of high pressure. Could be a severe night frost overnight Saturday and into Sunday. By Monday, low pressure's coming in from off the Atlantic. That's going to bring cloud and rain in from the west. Could be some quite heavy snow in with that on the leading edge, particularly for Scotland and northern England, maybe Northern Ireland for a time as well, but eventually turning back to rain as that milder air tucks in from off the Atlantic. Then we're through into a much more Atlantic-driven spell through the rest of next week with the GFS. So this is Tuesday. Next low pressure's winding up in the middle of the Atlantic, throwing in the next batch of wet and windy weather. That's still with us into Wednesday as well. Thursday and Friday next week looking unsettled with low pressure out to the west, driving in these bands of wet and windy weather from off the Atlantic Ocean. You'll notice there is high pressure up to our northeast. It's just there, and it does ridge to some degree over into the Norwegian Sea. But for us, it's this low pressure in the Atlantic that is the driver to continue to bring in those westerly winds and bands of rain. Moving up towards day 10, we continue to look very unsettled. That's how things are at day 10, which is Sunday the 10th of February. So high pressure is ridging out of west of Russia in towards Scandinavia. So it's having a go at raising heights to the northeast. But really for us, it remains these areas of low pressure out in the Atlantic continuing to drive in those bands of wet weather, and probably with high pressure building to the east northeast, probably fairly slow moving weather fronts. So as we go through next week, it might get progressively wetter actually as those weather fronts start to become a little bit stuck over the country. And then into the more extended range, continuing relatively mild and unsettled through the rest of the first week of February. We're up to the middle part of the month now. This is Valentine's Day, 14th of February. And that's as far as we can go to the 16th of February. Still, everything is driving in from off the Atlantic. Although, again, we are having a go at building some high pressure up over Scandinavia. So we're having a go at turning wind into the east. But most of that is actually being forced down into central and southern parts of Europe. And we remain mostly in an Atlantic flow. Although, obviously, it's a long way out. It's over 2 weeks away. And just a very slight adjustment would be enough to start pulling cold air in from the east. But in the next week to 10 days, it does look increasingly mild and unsettled. Right, so this is our ECMWF run now. I've told you what this is going to show, so you already know. It's going to build up a Scandinavian high. It is a cold outlier, though, to some degree. That's how things look on Sunday. We're underneath a ridge of high pressure. Cold into Sunday. Watch out for a severe frost to start on Sunday morning. Then low pressure heads in from off the Atlantic on Monday, bringing rain, possibly preceded by snow up in the north. Through the middle part of next week, we have this high pressure building already over Scandinavia. This is Thursday, 7th of February, a week away. Pressure is rising over Scandinavia. Atlantic is already starting to slow down and be blocked. And so by the time we get through to Friday, the 8th of February, yes, a high pressure over Scandinavia has actually started to take over. We're beginning to turn the wind into the east as this low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic is being pretty well blocked, and of course the mild winds are going up to there. So we've got some nice warm air advection going on, which is where we're pumping up southerly winds into the Arctic. On the eastern side of those southerly winds, we will start to inflate high pressure. So the Scandinavian high is actually forming through warm air advection And then as we go through into Saturday the 9th, running up towards the day 10, look at that, 1,040 millibar area of high pressure over Scandinavia. The winds are turning into the east. And so by the time we get through to day 10, Sunday, the 10th of February, we've got a fully formed Scandinavian high at 1,045 millibars. We've got the wind turning into the east. We've also got a very deep pool of cold air sitting over the other side of the North Sea. So, well, everything looks poised and set up for a beast from the east, I have to say, with the ECMWF at day 10. If we could roll on another day or two, I suspect we would find those bitterly cold easterly winds feeding into the UK, taking that really deep cold pool out of Central Europe and moving it into the UK. That is a very nice looking Scandinavian high. But again, do please keep in mind that this is a bit of a cold outlier. I can actually show you that from the De Beeld ensembles. So this is looking at De Beeld in Holland with the ECMWF. You can see the temperature scale on the side. That's 5 Celsius there. That's freezing. That's -5 just there. So cold at the moment at De Beeld, staying cold into next week, and then starting to lift up. The red line is the operational ECMWF run. That's where it finishes up at De Beeld. So proper cold. We're talking about daytime temperature staying below freezing all day. But it is well underneath the ensemble mean and most of the other ECM ensemble members. So the operational run finishes down there. The ensemble mean is kind of like up there. So you can see, but it wasn't very well supported. And towards the end, it was virtually one of the coldest ECM ensemble members. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong, of course. You can get outliers are actually trendsetters. We saw yesterday with a 6 o'clock run of the GFS that wanted to build up high pressure over Scandinavia. So I think we've got, and this goes along with the story of the winter, of course. We're expecting high pressure to become increasing blocking feature through February, with increasingly cold signals through February. So it would be in line with all of that. And I think we're going to be watching to the northeast as we're going into February. But until we see more evidence of Scandinavian highs within a lot more of model output, I think we need to stay very cautious about it. These are all of the options that are on the table within the ECM ensembles at day 10 on the 10th of February. This is from the Icelandic Met Office. So we've got 20 ensemble members, these ones just here, that are looking like this. They have high pressure or above average height sitting to the northeast of the country, but they do extend towards a ridge in the Atlantic as well. Overall, they're quite cold, though. They will be bringing in a wind from the east, I think, with most of those ensemble members at day 10. Another 18 with low pressure up to the northwest of Scotland, and these are feeding in a westerly Atlantic flow, so they're in line with what the GFS is doing around day 10, with low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic, albeit they have got above average height sitting to the east. The GFS has that as well, so these areas of low pressure and their weather fronts might be fairly slow moving, give quite a bit of rain actually, but those 18 ECM ensemble members are in line with what the GFS is doing. And then we've got another 13, and these include the operational GFS run, but again have that high pressure somewhere up to the north or to the northeast, centering towards Scandinavia, possibly over towards Greenland, with low pressure being blocked down here. These ones are cold and potentially wintry ensemble members too. And then if you go to 2 weeks away, these are the options that are on the table within the ECM ensembles today. So again, this is taking us to 360 hours away, which is the 15th of February. So we've got 17 ensemble members that are mild and Atlantic driven in 2 weeks. They have low pressure up to the north and high pressure down to the south. They're bringing in westerly or southwesterly winds. Then we've got another 14 that have high pressure centred over the top of the UK. So those ones are settled, probably cold from frost, but not Arctic or Siberian cold. We've got 11 that have high pressure blocking, northern blocking to the north, low pressure to the south. They're bringing in cold easterly winds, so they're a much colder scenario. And then we've got another 9 that have high pressure in the Atlantic and going up to Greenland, with below average heights sitting over to the east of the UK. These ones would also be cold and wintry, bringing the wind in from the north. So we've got 17 there that are basically mild and Atlantic driven, against the 11 just there and the 9 just there, which is of course going to be 20. So 17 mild, 20 cold, going for cold scenarios, albeit differing a little bit in the placement of the block. And then we've got 14 that are somewhere in between. They just have high pressure sitting over top of the country. They would probably be cold from frost, but they're not Arctic or Siberian cold. And I suppose overall the Atlantic is still in control there, because the jet stream generally go to our north around that ridge. So they're in between the colder and milder options. So in 2 weeks there is a lot of options on the table, but not a clear-cut blocking signal as we're going into the middle of February. Finally, we'll just have a look at the charts from the Beijing Climate Center. Haven't looked at Beijing Climate Center for a little while. So these are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts. They're broken down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period will take us from the 1st through to the 10th of February. A trough of below average heights is over the top of the UK and down to our south, with a ridge in the Atlantic. We're on the cold side of the jet stream, so we're looking cold and unsettled for the first 10 days of February. The next 10 days from the 11th through to the 20th of February, with above average heights in the Atlantic and extending north, below average heights to our south. Those ones also look as though they could be quite cold, but probably not as cold as we see in the first 10 days. Then we're going from the 21st of February through to the 2nd of March, again with quite a strong blocking signal up to our north, below average heights to our south. You would expect to be feeding in pretty cold east or northeasterly winds with those. And then the final 10-day period is days 31 to 40, takes us from the 3rd through to the 12th of March, with above average heights again in the middle of the North Atlantic, extending up towards Greenland to some degree, below average heights over to the south of the UK, and those ones look like they should be quite cold as well. So the Beijing Climate Center looks like it wants to keep things pretty cold through February and into March. Temperature anomalies from the 1st through to the 10th of February are colder than average for the UK, so it is looking like a cold 10 days, first 10 days of February. Then we go through to the next 10-day period, which is still a bit below average, but not as much as it is in days 1 to 10. So days 11 to 20, not as cold as days 1 to 10, but still a little bit below average. The next 10-day period actually goes close to average, or possibly even a little bit milder than average, perhaps surprisingly, given the 500 millibar height anomaly. This is the 21st of February to the 2nd of March, just a little bit milder than average then. Most parts of Europe, though, still looking cold, you'll notice. So very slight adjustments, we could easily start to get more cold weather then. And then we go through to the final 10-day period, which is the 3rd through to the 12th of March. And generally, it's close to average, possibly hinting at being a little bit below average in the south, and perhaps a little bit milder than average up in the north. Again, notice most parts of Europe are looking quite cold through the first sort of 10 days of March. So that's all rather inconclusive, but I think in terms of 500 millibar heights, the Beijing Climate Center looks like it wants to keep quite a blocking signal going into February. Anyway, quite well into February, albeit the coldest conditions in the month actually happen early on. Anyway, we won't worry too much about that. Let's come back to the next week to 10 days. So it looks like we're going to get milder next week. I think that's the big theme of the model output at the moment. Milder weather moving in next week, the Atlantic taking over, at least for a time. How long it lasts, we've got to wait to see how long it takes to get back to our next cold spell. The ECM is right, then it won't take very long at all. Even by the second half of next week, we'll start to pull in some rather colder winds from the east. And if that Scandinavian high builds up, as we get towards days 8, 9, 10, then we could be in for a real a real easterly. However, it's not particularly well supported, and it just remains on the table. It's an option that's on the table. Got to keep a close eye on what's happening over Scandinavia, but I think the main theme from this video update is probably a milder week next week, and rather more unsettled as well, with some bands of wet weather coming in from off the Atlantic. Where we go beyond that, up to the middle of February, let's wait and see. Right, so that's it for today. Just one video today. I don't think we'll update Snowwatch, because I don't think things are looking any different from how they was looking last night, really. So I think if you want to know about the snow, just check out last night's Snowwatch. It's still relevant for the situation today. Tomorrow we'll have JMA Friday coming up, so that's your month-end look ahead, of course, as always on a Friday, and also have a week to 10-day video update as well tomorrow. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.